Did we start? Live video is starting. Hello and welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I am Michael Pinter, where I teach you how to start flipping and wholesaling houses, or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. So I had a question from the great Greg Helbeck about evictions and how do you evict tenants in New York. So I haven't talked about this in a while, and the truth is there was a major change in New York state law from the former governor Andrew Cuomo in the end of 2019, right before the pandemic started, that threw things up and changed things around. So a couple of things. First of all, you have to know whether you own this property in your personal name or in a LLC's name, in a business's name. Now, if you own it in your own name, you are able to do the eviction on your own pro se, which means representing yourself. I think so. And when I first started buying properties back in like 2004, I did all my evictions. I owned my properties in my own name, and I did the evictions myself. And I preferred that, to be honest, because I got good at it and I knew how it worked, and I didn't have to rely on somebody else. Now, you may say, even if I can do an eviction pro se, I want to have somebody else do it for me, and I completely understand that. Just understand that if you own a property in an LLC, and you probably should own all your properties in some kind of business entity, whether it's an LLC or an S corp or a C corp or a trust, whatever the hell it is, you probably should, to avoid liability issues. In that case, you're gonna have to hire an attorney. So if anybody needs an attorney, I use a firm called Clark and Amadio. They're based in Hempstead, New York. They do the five boroughs. They do Long Island, Nassau, Suffolk counties. I find them to be good. But here's how it works now that the former disgraced Governor Cuomo has changed the rules. There are times where you only have to give a occupant shorter notice than 90 days. Right? Sometimes you only need to give 30, sometimes you don't have to give 60. However, you probably should always give 90 days notice now. Now, why do you say that? If the law is I only have to give 30, because the worst thing that can happen to you is that you give 30-day notice, you get a court date, and I'm going to go through what happens, and then you get there and the guy challenges the notice, or says that the notice wasn't effective because of some information you had. Usually it's based on how long the tenant's been there. Let's take another step back. I'm sorry, I'm going out of order. So first of all, if you want to evict somebody, there are four types of people that you may want to evict. One is a previous owner. So if you buy a foreclosure at an auction, the owner might be there. Two is a tenant, someone who at some point was renting and then either has stopped paying, which is usually the case, or is just there too long. So it's called a holdover tenant if they're there too long, but they're still paying. The third is a licensee, which I never heard about till a few years ago, which means someone who had a right to be there. Let's say he was the boyfriend of the previous owner, but he just never left, right? So he's not, he shouldn't be there now, but he was allowed to move in. And the fourth is a squatter. Squatter is someone who never had a right to be there and just showed up. Unfortunately, all these cases are pretty much the same thing. Now, the problem is, let's say you may only have to give 10 days notice if it's a squatting situation, right? But the problem is, if that squatter shows up and finds out who the previous owner was, and says, I had a real lease with him, right? They make up a lease and they show it in court. The judge is going to go, you didn't give notice properly. You don't give 10 days, you're supposed to give 90 days. So you're better off giving 90 days notice all the time to be safe. So you have to give 90 days notice and get the hell out of there within 90 days. After 90 days, when they don't leave, you then have to get a court date to actually summon them to court. And you have to shoot them. You have to give them notice. Now, it used to be between 10 and 15 days. Now it's a little different. You have to give them notice during a certain amount of time. I recommend, and this is if you ever go and sit in court, you will see cases thrown out by the boatload because of improper service. So it is worth it to pay a process server, right? This is a company, there are a million of them. I used to use alert process servers when I did it myself. But there's process servers anywhere. Use a reputable process serving company. It costs $100, $150 to serve them both their 90 days notice, and you'll get an affidavit of service, which is what you can show in court and is golden, and also serve them notice about when to come to court. Now you may think, why can't I do that myself? And the answer is you're not allowed to do it yourself. And more importantly is, if you do it with your friend, my cousin, my wife, my brother, my best friend's cousin, service can be challenged, and that's the number one reason they throw things out of court, right? You could see it every day that a landlord will go there and he'll serve the tenant himself, or his wife will serve the tenant, something stupid like that, where she owns the property too, and the court's like, forget it, you got to start from scratch. I made a mistake once. Want to hear a really stupid thing I did? I really want. It used to be that you had to serve them before the end of the month. Now it doesn't matter what time of the month it is. So I closed on something like the 31st day of the month, and I had the guy serve that day. And they came back and they said, we closed late in the afternoon. I didn't think you have time to serve. So basically, I had to start from scratch, right? So stupid thing. So don't never cut corners on service ever. Pay a process server, get an affidavit of service, do it the right way, find out what's legal. Usually if you're using an attorney, they're going to hire a process server anyway. But always make sure people are served the way they're supposed to by a professional, right? Professional will show up in court and testify. I gave it to that person, or I gave it to someone who said they were that person, or I went there 3 times, I couldn't find them, and I put the service mail, mail and nail, put it on there. We mail it to them and we mail it to their door. A judge will never throw out a process server, an affidavit of service from a professional, so it's worth it. So you get a court date. What happens when the first court date is you get sent to mediation. First of all, it depends who shows up, right? Ideally, the other guy, the tenant, doesn't show up. You show up, and then they'll wait. They'll give them a lot of time to show up. And if they really don't show up and they're not represented, you will get a default judgment for whatever you want, right? Whatever they haven't paid, and a warrant for possession. Also, people ask a lot about illegal units, right? So it's a little funky because there are a bunch of different judges now. But there was one judge for the whole Nassau County for many, many years. Judge Fairgrieve, ironic his name is, who's fair. His situation was, if it's an illegal unit, I don't care. I'm not the building department, but you can either choose for a monetary award or eviction. Now, 99.9999 times you want eviction, right? You want to get the guy out. So people chose eviction, and then you couldn't get a monetary judgment. So if you both show up, they're going to send you to a mediator. A bunch of mediators sitting there. They say, "Can we work it out?" And then they will want to sign a stipulation. So you want to come to some agreement. So what a lot of stupid landlords do when they go, I'm not letting this guy stay for a penny less than every dollar plus all my court fees, all that stupid shit. It's not thinking well. What the right thing to do is to create something that's difficult for the tenant that you think he won't actually do. So you say, okay, you owe me $27,000. If you give me $5,000 in a week, and you give me another $4,000 in 2 weeks, and then you catch up by adding an extra $1,000 every month for a year, then you can stay. Now, a lot of tenants who are not sophisticated will then say something along the lines of, okay, because they believe they're just kicking the can down the line, right? They're just pushing it off. The beauty of them having a signed stipulation, something of that nature, is A, you're probably going to get some of the money. B, as soon as they don't pay you, all you have to do is file an affidavit of non-compliance with the court saying, hey, this guy signed the stipulation, said he would do this, he didn't do this. That's really good. Then you get a warrant for possession, which means you got the process started to get the sheriff going. So now, if you can't come to an agreement or stipulation, they're going to schedule a trial, not have the trial that day, schedule a trial. That pushes things off longer. Schedule the trial. At the trial, they'll usually bring up bullshit stories. This guy shut off my this, did this to me, whatever the hell they're going to say about you as landlord. But eventually you're going to win, right? I mean, that's the truth. If the guy's not paying rent, you're going to win. The judges are not stupid. They understand that. And by the way, this only applies in Nassau and Suffolk County. In the city, it's going to take a long time. And the tenants have much stronger hold in the courts there. So that's really what goes on. And usually you're going to agree to something, or they're not going to show up, or you're going to go to a trial, and you're going to get eventually a warrant for possession, which means that's something you have to take. You then have to get a, what the hell is it called? You get a judgment for possession. And you get a warrant for possession. You have to take that. You have to bring it to the sheriff. You got to pay the sheriff a little bit of money, and you got to start the process of waiting for the sheriff. The whole process takes a while, right? It could take, it used to take 3-4 months. Now it probably takes 5-6 months in the best case scenario. So then you have to go to the sheriff, and the sheriff puts you on the list, and then eventually calls you and says, we're coming. So that when that day comes, he calls you in advance. They call you the day before, say, can we do eviction tomorrow? You say yes. And then you have to also, before you go to the sheriff, you have to hire a moving company, right? You have to show them that you have a moving company, to show them the stupid insurance paperwork for the moving company. And then the moving company has to show up with you there because Phil approaching 60 months in Buffalo. Well, after the pandemic, Phil, everything is backed up the wazoo. But in Nassau and stuff, like I think are the only two counties in the world. You have to actually bring a moving company. You have to take all this tenant's crap in the truck. Sometimes there's a lot of stuff if it's a house, and then you got to put it in storage for 30 days. So that's really where it becomes the most expensive, right? The legal fees usually aren't so bad if it doesn't get dragged on forever. Um, but the moving company can be a couple $1,000s. So you want to avoid that. Now the way it works is the sheriff's going to give them, I think, 1 week's notice beforehand. Very often the tenant's going to leave when they get 1 week's notice to go. It used to be 72 hours notice. They changed a lot of things right before the pandemic. So that's the basic gist of how it works. You can get delays, adjournments as they call them, for all kinds of stupid shit. Professional tenants know how to do that, but it takes a while, and it's a pain. It's no fun. And if this stupid, ridiculous good cause eviction gets passed in the state of New York, it's going to be a nightmare, right? Owning rentals in New York is going to be a losing proposition. I think it's going to affect property values significantly, but what do I know? So I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in all the ways I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com or learntoflipandwholesale.com. If you're not interested. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching on any media channel, please click the thumbs up. The likes really help my the search algorithm because a lot more people are seeing my videos. And I post 5 times a week. I very rarely know what I'm going to talk about. This came by request from Greg. And please keep the comments coming with your questions. You can ask anything. It does not have to be about the video you're watching. If it's something with a simple answer, I'll just reply with an answer. If it's something that I've covered recently, I'll send you a link to a video on it. And if it's something I haven't covered in a while or never covered, I will do a brand new video on it. So thank you very, very much for watching.